Firstly, we are humbled daily by the efforts of the NHS workers and all the other key workers in our country. They are making unimaginable sacrifices to treat the sick and care for the vulnerable and provide supplies of medicine and food. And we owe them everything. And it is right that we should continue the pressure to ensure that PPE and testing and equipment is provided as we continue to enforce the lockdown. Madam Deputy Speaker, this is a national struggle, but it's being fought hardest at the local level in communities. My constituents in Bethnal Green and Bow are resilient people. Some still recall surviving the Blitz. And today there are many who survive a daily struggle of poor housing, low wages, lack of opportunities and antisocial behaviour. But no matter how resilient and how tough they are, they need government on their side. They need targeted interventions to help them in these difficult times. They need protection against the vagaries of a global economy to protect their jobs, their incomes, their businesses. Madam Deputy Speaker, the economic projections are chilling. The latest IMF analysis suggests that the global recession is going to be far worse than the 2007 global crash. And the WTO says that global trade could collapse by 31% this year, just as the post-Brexit Britain is desperate to strike up deals. A terrible economic storm is coming, and we are just not ready. The UK is ill-prepared after a decade of underinvestment, imbalances between the nations and regions, and the deep scars of inequality, poverty caused by a decade of austerity, characterised by stagnant wages, cuts in our public services. And young people are once again likely to be the lost generation unless our government takes immediate steps to ensure that they have the training and the support virtually while we're in distancing mode and other provisions quickly to ensure that they can get into the labour market and they are not the lost generation. And we need to use the hundreds of thousands of volunteers who volunteered to help in the NHS to ensure that they can also help young people through supporting their efforts, through mentoring and backing them as we find a way through this crisis. This finance bill does little to strengthen our economy and make us more resilient. Even before the COVID crisis, it was inadequate. It doesn't deal with the challenges of climate change and the climate emergency, and it doesn't go far enough to reverse the challenges that have been posed by the deep-seated inequalities in health, in education, and in other spheres over the last decade. That is what the OBR predicts, that 35% there will be a reduction in GDP in the second quarter, and unemployment is going to rise by more than 2 million. Already, Madam Deputy Speaker, the deficit hawks are circling over the Treasury bench, calling for huge cuts in public spending. Another decade of austerity as the answer to government debt is absolutely not acceptable. Surely we've learned from the financial crisis in the recent weeks that we have to make sure our public services are resilient and strong in order to face the threats of global pandemics and economic downturns. Madam Deputy Speaker, we need to make sure that we protect those who are on the front line, who have often been the low-paid, who haven't been treated well, the teachers, the nurses, the carers, the delivery workers, the shop workers, all those people who, they don't run the country, but they make the country run, as we've seen in recent weeks. We need a modern-day Marshall Plan, rebuilding and reconstructing our NHS, social care, police, schools, and other vital public services, rather than leaving them vulnerable and fragile as we face crises like the current pandemic. We need to make sure that local authorities that are in the front line get the support they needed. Take Tower Hamlets Council in my constituency. They are having to spend around 25 million and losing 35 million of income. That's a significant amount of money, and I call on the Minister to make sure local authorities get the support. The job retention scheme is welcome, but hundreds of thousands of people are still being excluded, and they need help urgently in the hospitality and other sectors. Finally, Madam Speaker, I want to highlight the impact of in the global south. In countries like Bangladesh, the failure of companies like Asda, New Look, Edinburgh Woolen, Peacock, Urban Outfitters to pay up for contracted work is leaving millions of people vulnerable to unemployment and starvation. It's important that we ensure that our companies are responsible and that people's lives are protected. We have a duty to work together domestically and internationally. Thank you.
John Penrose.